pushing back against the Donald Elon tyranny. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe and let's start talking about it. Every little bit counts. Every little thing you do to protest, to resist, counts. And I start with that because I made a commitment 4 years ago that I would not call Donald Trump anything other than Donald. Because Donald Trump hates being called Donald by people who he considers to be beneath him, which is everybody. So that was a commitment to myself. And then when I started this particular podcast, early on in it, I had done live streams. But this time, I wanted to go to black and white because we are regressing back as a nation. Donald Trump is throwing us back, is pushing us back. And in order for us to be able to successfully counter that, we also have to, in any form possible, push back. And leaders like AOC, and there are in the Senate, Chris Murphy, they aren't hiding. They aren't cowering to threats by people like Tom Homan, who says that they have directed the DOJ or asked the DOJ to investigate AOC. Well, go ahead. She's a representative of the United States using her First Amendment rights and the rights of the Fourth Amendment to privacy to teach others what the law is. Her constituents and people in her constituency have a leader who can and does educate their constituents. And people like Tom Homan, Donald's border czar, is furious about it. And they want to investigate a member of Congress for speaking truth to power and educating people about the Constitution. Well, go ahead and investigate and try to see if you can find something to, take her on legally. You're not going to find anything, and whatever it is going to be a harassment of a leader who is speaking truth to power. Push back by supporting Associated Press. So Associated Press said that they weren't going to change the name in their coverage of Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. What is Donald Trump's response? Well, you are cut off from accessing our administration. You can't come into the press room. Your press credentials have been, so to speak, suspended. A state actor, First Amendment says, Congress shall not abridge the freedom of press. So a state actor abridging the freedom of press is contrary to the First Amendment, although here we are not dealing with Congress, but an arbitrary and capricious executive in the White House, where the press has a right to be under the First Amendment. So push back against that. Be an engaged citizen or an independent media journalist who stands by Associated Press. I sure as hell do. The terminated employees are suing. They're also running for office to be able to counter this. The Hampton Dellinger case, who was the director of the Office of Special Counsel, is going to go up to SCOTUS, and it's going to be a question of whether a for-cause employee can be fired without notice, without the requirement provided to Congress 30 days prior to the termination. And we're going to see what the Supreme Court says. Mind you, this is an executive branch decision, and when it comes to the executive branch decision, the Supreme Court may hold that they can fire and not. I don't know how they would go about the law of providing notice, or I'm not sure if it's a law or if it's a procedure. If it's just a procedure and a custom, then it's not going to happen. So we're gonna have to see through these cases so as to see what happens, because every firing that has happened so far is at will. There's been no investigation, no sort of assessing of whether these people are good or not. We heard that they fired from the Department of Energy people who take care of our nuclear weapons. Well, now they're trying to rehire them back. Same thing happened with the USDA and the people who were fighting and sort of trying to combat avian flu, which has caused egg prices to skyrocket. And they fired those people and are now trying to desperately hire them back. This is not how a government works. A corporation like Twitter can work like that. That's exactly what Elon Musk did when he went in and bought Twitter and tried to sort of change it over. And now it's become sort of a junk social media site with a huge user base, mind you, but still junk nonetheless. And so foreign leaders are also pushing back. This tirade that J.D. Vance gave to Europe about the responsibility and the strength of democracy. And now the Trump administration is coming out and blaming Ukraine for the Ukraine-Russia war, which was started by Russian invasion on international territory that is designated to Ukraine. The international laws and lines had drawn a line of Ukraine, which was breached by Russia in 2014 when they took and annexed Crimea, and then started again 3 years ago to encroach on Ukrainian territory by invading and starting to kill civilians and continuing to do so to this day. Well, Germans have pushed back, and I believe Europe is going to push back. They tried to have a peace talk about Ukraine without Ukraine being part of it in Saudi Arabia. And no peace talk without Ukraine is a peace talk about Ukraine. And Zelensky has made that clear. They now want to have an election in Ukraine before there's a peace agreement. There should be a free and fair election in Russia as well, if that were to be the case. And let's hope that the opposition doesn't fall off from the 5th floor of a building. We're seeing people protesting across the country. It hasn't reached the point of, full capacity yet, but it is growing. The calls to the representatives and senators are up, and keep that up, keep that going. And new leaders like Jasmine Crockett are speaking up and are speaking truth to power and really slamming the right-wing extremists who are on TV talking about the reasonability of Donald Trump's actions when there's really nothing reasonable about it. Online, we are waging a war of ideas. I have very limited coverage, but I myself am doing what little I can as an engaged citizen to inform you that people are pushing back, and you should too. Whether that be by spreading this video and sharing this video, or by sharing other videos that speak truth to power, following the elected representatives and independent media on social media. Everything from Bulwark to Midas Touch. And engaged journalists like Aaron Rupar and engaged citizens like myself. There, you have choices, and then you can go to the legacy media and double check the information provided, figure the truth out for yourself, and come to a conclusion that, is this okay for Donald Trump to overreach and disregard the rules of for-cause employees? Is it okay for Donald Trump to change the equation of the Ukraine war by blaming Ukraine for Russia's invasion? Or by talking about Gaza and terraforming Gaza and ethnically cleansing that area of millions of people? We have to talk about the federal firings and look at them on a piece-by-piece basis to see whether the president can or cannot automatically, without notice, without cause, just fire somebody who is in a position that is confirmed by the Senate and nominated by the president. And that position requires notice to Congress and requires a cause for which that person is being fired. Well, all of the IGs who've been fired have for-cause claims, and they will all go up to whichever the Supreme Court, unless the Supreme Court makes a sweeping decision in Dellinger that says all of these firings, whether for cause or at will, are under the president's domain, which would be a huge dereliction of their own duties to see whether the law is being interpreted and applied properly in each one of the cases. So we have to push back against even those bad court orders, because it is highly unlikely that they would issue a blanket order. But in case they did, that spells catastrophe. And there will be lawsuits that will come up that will challenge that notion in a different way, through a different argument that is more compelling than the one that particular blanket ruling sort of defeated. So the public interest makes a big difference in how the courts and how the DOJ and how these other organizations that file friend of the court briefs, like Citizens for Ethics, and Congress, by the way. Congress is also filing amicus briefs, friend of the court briefs, telling the courts how this is a violation of the Constitution and how it violates the separation of powers and undermines the Congress's spending power and its power to create and dissolve agencies by law. Because we are a nation of laws and not of men. So learn about the rights that you have. Learn how to push back against ICE encroaching on your rights. Follow court orders or appeal them. Follow the judiciary and adhere to the judiciary's orders. Protest if you have anybody saying that the judiciary's orders will not be enforced. That is what will kill our constitutional order. So I will push back again. I will end with this. Push back against Doji. You know, Donald Trump has come out and said that Elon Musk is not the head of Doji in a court document when he introduced Doji and the executive order about Doji had Elon Musk being the person in charge of it. So now Elon Musk is a senior advisor to the president, and conflict of interest questions remain about him being a senior advisor while also being one of the big defense contractors of our government. He has to divest those interests in those companies if he is to be a senior advisor to the president. And this will go to court. They know that Doji is going to be nullified by court. So now they're playing this senior advisor card, but that will start a new conflict of interest problem that they will deal with when the time arises. So push back on that. Push back on getting Elon out of the White House, making sure that he's nowhere near our government, because currently he is going and gutting our Department of Education, the Federal Aviation Authority, going out to the IRS, going out to the Social Security Administration, USAID. Social Security Administration is by far the largest one he's targeted so far. But he's going through these and just firing people on Donald Trump's behalf. Does Donald Trump have the power to delegate this firing and cleaning and cutting of the budget to a senior advisor who is not confirmed by the Senate, who is overruling cabinet secretaries who are confirmed by the Senate and have to be nominated by the president? But Elon Musk has not been confirmed by the Senate. So these are all questions and places where we can and where we must push back. With that said, thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe, and I will talk to you soon.